The year 476. Ravenna. Odoacer tears the purple cloak from the shoulders of the last emperor. The fabric rips. The air is thick with the smell of unwashed bodies, smoke, and cheap wine. In that moment, humanity didn't just change management. We hit pause for 1,000 years. The secret of concrete, forgotten. Aqueducts, dry. The steam engine, discarded like trash. Europe chose to rot in mud and plague instead of choosing progress. But what if the legions had held the line? No magic, just steel, steam, and a ruthless logic of empire. Welcome to Rome Punk. History hates the word if, but logic demands blood. Because of one system failure, we lost a millennium of development. Today, we are going to lance that boil. We will answer 3 main questions. First, why did progress stall, and how do we escape the economic trap where a slave is cheaper than coal? Second, what exactly did we lose, from eternal concrete to surgery without gangrene? Third, what would this world look like? Steam triremes in the Atlantic and an optical telegraph from Londinium to Egypt. Forget cyborgs and todas. We are not writing fantasy. We are going to reason like engineers, hard, cynical, and factual.
Alexandria, 1st century AD. The stuffy workshop smells of red-hot bronze and olive oil. On the table, hissing wildly and leaking steam, a metal sphere spins. This is Heron's Eolipile. Not magic, but pure physics. Yet for the Romans, this isn't an engine of progress, it's a parlor trick. At most, it's used to automatically open heavy temple doors to frighten superstitious old women. Technology capable of launching factories 1,700 years ahead of schedule was working as a doorman. But why didn't the sphere become an engine? Because genius was needed elsewhere, to cross the energy of steam with the brute force of the piston pump, which was already pumping water at Roman fires. All the puzzle pieces had been lying on the table for centuries. Only one thing was missing, an economic noose. The answer lies not in brains, but in accounting. Go down into the silver mines of Spain. Meet Lucius. He is 20 years old, and he is already an old man. Waist-deep in freezing water, he and thousands like him bail out the sludge with buckets. The stench of unwashed bodies, the clanking of chains, and the snapping of bones. This is the fuel of the empire. Why should a patrician spend a fortune on a complex temperamental mechanism and hire an expensive engineer, when for the same money he can buy 100 Dacian prisoners? A slave requires no spare parts. If he breaks, you throw him out and buy a new one. Lucius won't live to see 30. But imagine the dealer turns off the tap. The point of divergence. Conquests cease. The flow of fresh slaves from the borders runs dry. The price of living merchandise shoots into the stratosphere. The mine owner looks at the ledger and realizes he is ruined. There are no men. The water is rising. And that is when, out of desperation, he blows the dust off Heron's blueprints. Not for science, but to save his own skin. The economic noose forces him to turn a toy into a roaring monster that pumps water. That is exactly how, through crisis and losses, true industry is born.
The first steam engines are dirty, clumsy monsters chained to the ground. They don't carry pretty ladies in hats. They do the dirty work. Imagine the year 800. Instead of water mills, soot-stained brick boxes stand on the banks of the Rhine. Inside, there's an infernal roar. Pistons the size of barrels rhythmically drive piles and turn millstones. The air in the provinces now smells not of manure, but of coal smoke. Roman engineers quickly realize, if this thing can turn a shaft, it can turn wheels. And here history performs an elegant pirouette. The empire doesn't need to build infrastructure from scratch. It is already perfect. Roman roads are a multi-layered engineering cake capable of withstanding a tank column. At first, they don't waste expensive iron. The first tracks are the so-called rutways, stone grooves used in mines for centuries. Only later, when the coal of Britain stokes the furnaces, will they be replaced by cast iron strips. Irony of fate, the modern railway gauge of 1,435 millimeters is an exact copy of the gauge of a Roman war chariot. By the year 1000, the Augustus is launched on the Rome-Ostia line, a riveted beast of bronze and iron spitting sparks. A journey that took a whole day now takes an hour. And on the footplate of this monster stands another Lucius, the descendant of that slave from the mine. He doesn't swing a pickaxe, he shovels coal into the firebox. He is free, but the chain that held his ancestor has simply become longer. The main client of the new technology is not the merchant, but the legion. The railroad kills Rome's greatest weakness, speed. Moving an army from rainy Britain to the sands of Egypt takes not months, but a week. Soldiers step out of the train cars not as tired mules, but as fresh, well-fed, and angry dogs of war. Any rebellion is now certain death. The barbarians are only just sharpening their axes, and on the horizon, a train with the Praetorian Guard is already smoking. The railroad binds the provinces together with steel hoops.
Walk into the Pantheon. Its dome has hung overhead for nearly 2,000 years. Without rebar, the secret is opus caementitium, a mixture of volcanic ash, lime, and seawater that gets stronger every year. We lost this recipe. In our alternate history, it evolved. By the year 1200, with cheap steel available, Roman architects cross eternal concrete with an iron frame. Rome tears into the sky. Insulae, the ancient human anthills that used to collapse under their own weight, now soar 20 stories up. Our Lucius's family now lives not in a dugout, but on the 18th floor of such a hive. Picture this skyline. Skyscrapers of gray concrete and soot-stained bronze block out the sun. Streets turn into deep canyons. This is not a shining city of the future. This is a grim, oppressive metropolis of 3 million souls. But it is in this density that magic is born. Ideas don't travel for months, they fly across a bar counter. The Silicon Valley effect, multiplied by the brutality of antiquity. But this anthill has a terrible enemy: filth.
The Middle Ages smelled of excrement, literally. But Rome remembered, don't defecate where you eat. In the world of Rome punk, the Cloaca Maxima is the intestine of the metropolis, digesting the waste of millions. Aqueducts deliver industrial volumes of water. Public baths are not a spa, but a mandatory civic procedure. The centurion of the sanitary service doesn't write a fine for slops on the doorstep. He hits you in the kidneys with a baton. Hygiene is enforced by iron. And then comes the year 1347, the year of the apocalypse. A ship with plague rats docks in the port of Messina. In real history, this is the beginning of the Black Death, which will mow down a third of Europe. But the plague couldn't care less about marble and baths. It doesn't matter where you wash if a ship with infected rats enters the port. In real history, the plague of Justinian wiped out half the Eastern Empire precisely because of its global connections. But our alternate Rome has a weapon stronger than soap: ruthless bureaucracy and the legions. The outbreak is localized in the port district. No pity. A cordon blocks the streets, and the quarter is burned along with its inhabitants for the greater good. Cruel? Yes. But in Roman arithmetic, sacrificing one city to save 10 is a profitable deal. The consequences are colossal. Europe does not empty out. By the year 1500, the population triples. Europe is teeming with people. The critical mass of brains reaches its peak. The world is ready for a digital leap, but without electricity.
Information is just a signal. It doesn't care if it runs through a copper cable or flies as a beam of light. By the year 1000, the entire empire is covered by a network of high towers. On each one, a system of rotating mirrors and lenses. This is the optical telegraph. By day, sunbeams. By night, powerful searchlights. An operator in Londinium pulls the levers. Flash, pause, flash. On the next tower, the signal is repeated. The chain works at the speed of light. Quotes for Egyptian wheat reach the stock exchange in Rome in an hour. Now imagine, night, a tower on the border with Germania. Our Lucius, a descendant of the stoker, looks through a spyglass. Silence. Suddenly, a flash from the neighboring tower. He starts writing down the code. P-R-I-N-C. The emperor is dead. His heart hammers in his throat. He, a simple signalman, has 30 seconds. Pass the signal on and provoke a war for the throne. Stay silent and be executed for treason. That is the true power of information. and true fear.
Forget Columbus. Rome doesn't play the lottery. By the year 1400, the Atlantic is not the Sea of Darkness. A steam trireme pushes along the azimuth with the stubbornness of a rhinoceros. Crossing the ocean takes 3 weeks. When the New World appears on the horizon, it is the arrival of an expeditionary corps. It is not ragged adventurers who land on the shore, but legionaries clad in plate armor. The conquistadors had muskets and horses. The Romans have rapid-fire scorpions, Greek fire, and tactics that broke the backs of nations stronger than these. But Rome's main weapon is not the sword, but integration. And by a cruel irony of fate, this Roman America would be more humane than reality. The Spaniards needed gold, the English needed land, Rome needs taxpayers. The Aztecs wouldn't be exterminated by smallpox, they would be forced to pay taxes and learn Latin. Brutal assimilation instead of lazy genocide. 50 years later, aqueducts stand in the jungles of the Yucatan and the local nobility wears togas. America does not become a colony, it becomes a province. In our history, the fall of Rome shattered Latin into shards. Here, that didn't happen. From Britain to the Yucatan, the same speech sounds, vulgar Latin. You think you don't know Latin? Mistake. Right now, you are watching this video from the Latin video, I see. Through the internet, from inter, between. Your intellect, your culture, your society, all these are Latin roots. In a world where Rome won, you wouldn't have to learn English. You would already speak the language that is sewn into the DNA of your civilization. There are no barriers. A legionary from Germany feels no stranger in Egypt. The world becomes seamless. Nationalism does not exist because nations do not exist. There is only one identity, civis Romanus sum. I am a Roman citizen. This is the password. Rome doesn't care about your genetics. If you pay taxes, honor the laws, and speak Latin, you are one of us. Globalization arrived 500 years early. The world became huge, efficient, and frighteningly identical. Let's take off the rose-tinted glasses. Technologically advanced Rome is a concentration camp with very good logistics. In our history, there was the Renaissance, humanism, individual rights. In the world of eternal Rome, there was no Renaissance. Why revive something if the empire never died? You get the steam engine and medicine, but the price is your soul. Technology here does not liberate, it tightens the noose. The optical telegraph is a tool of total control. In every house, on every street, a mosaic with an eye. This is not just decor, it is the system's logo, a reminder. In a world where information flies at the speed of light, you have no privacy. A Roman citizen is never alone. The empire is watching. This is the Panopticon, built 1,500 years before the word was invented. The perfect prison where everyone is both prisoner and warden. This is a world where the iPhone is invented to calculate taxes, not to post photos of food. A world of cold reason. We would have reached space by the year 1900, but sitting in the rocket would be centurions of the Space Legion, flying to annex Mars. Ruthless, efficient, and absolutely empty inside. We look at the Colosseum and see romantic ruins, but in reality, it is the tombstone of a world that could have been. When Rome fell, humanity fell face first into the mud. We forgot concrete, plumbing, and medicine for 1,000 years. We lost time. But perhaps we saved our souls. Think about it. In that cold, perfect empire, there was no place for the human. The Roman machine knew no pity. In its logic, a slave is a thing, a rebel is a defect. It was in the dirty, chaotic Middle Ages, when central power collapsed, that something new was born. In the struggle between barons, kings, and the church, a crack appeared, and freedom slipped through. It was from this chaos that human rights, humanism, and the value of the individual grew. We went through 1,000-year withdrawal to learn how to say no to the system. If Rome had stood, today our starships would already be plowing through the galaxy, but they would be starships with slaves at the reactors. We would have colonized Mars, but we would have brought gladiator fights and crucifixions with us. So history asks you one last, very uncomfortable question. Where would you prefer to wake up tomorrow?
In a dirty, dangerous, imperfect world where you have a voice, or in a shining, well-fed, eternal Rome where you have a warm toilet, but your life belongs to the emperor? The choice is yours.